Good morning. Hopefully you've had a great night's rest and you've had a great first session of the day. So cracking on, this is a 15-minute lightning session, so we will be foregoing questions. If you do have questions for Rochelle, please catch her after the talk in the hallway area. For this session, we are looking at MongoDB for data analysis. You'll be saving 15 hours with these 15 minutes, at least. The session will be covering how to upload into MongoDB Atlas from a CSV or a DataFrame data. And from that point on, extracting that data into either a parquet file, a NumPy array, or a DataFrame, and effectively defining that schema on the fly. The speaker for this session, she oversees R&D for all MongoDB's drivers, as well as the education for developers and our developer hub. Some say that she uploads her consciousness, Johnny Mnemonic style, avatar if you're too young for that reference, to an M4000 cluster. I don't know about that, but she's our product manager for developer experience. I'll give you Rochelle Palmer.
Okay, morning. Okay, I'm making sure I'm not muted still. Great. Good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. I'm going to try to fly through this so that maybe there will be some time for questions at the end, but we'll just find out. So, okay. So, according to a JetBrains 2021 survey, 59% of Python developers, software engineers, are expected to do data analysis tasks in their quote-unquote spare time. Actually, those numbers are a little bit worse. According to MongoDB's developer survey that we did a few months ago, if you are a Python developer, the odds are that you are tasked not only with your normal software engineering responsibilities for web development, but also database-related tasks, which is, I assume, why you're here, data analysis task, sometimes sysadmin task as well. So the Python developer's life is kind of challenging at times because you're expected to do all of these things. So I'd like to take a brief tangent and talk to you about why I'm not a developer. Despite my youthful exterior here, I graduated in 2004. So in 2004, there was no Quora. There was no Stack Overflow. And so how you ended up having to learn to program is typically via a book and then asking your friends. Unfortunately, I went to a women's college. There were no friends I had who were CS majors who were women. I was one of the only women who took CS classes at all. And so when I graduated and went into the workforce, I was almost always one woman in a sea of like 19, 20, 25 male developers. Not that that mattered. I ended up learning a lot, but I decided that coding was not for me because it was simply too hard. I often could not get it to work. So imagine my surprise when 18 months ago, I was doing my typical product manager tasks, reading Stack Overflow, and I saw a ton of posts from Python developers asking, how can I get data from a pandas data frame into MongoDB? How can I get data out of MongoDB into a pandas data frame, into a NumPy array? Can somebody please tell me? And instead of getting answers, they got a lot of me too. And some of the answers that were given, this is so tiny because I had to try to fit it on one slide. You're like, this will work. No. So anyways, what proceeded after that was me doing interviews with a bunch of Python developers who were tasked with doing data analysis on the side, quote unquote, and them also telling me stories like, I tried for 15 hours to get this to work. And then they maybe got it to work, or they finally gave up, or they kind of futzed with it enough to make it sort of work. So anyways, what I want to talk to you about is the library that we have built called PyMongoArrow, which will make this shockingly simple for you to do. Okay. The answer to this question now is yes, and that's even if your boss asks you at 2:30. What I wanted from our developer team, and I went to them with, after reading all of the comments, was I want I still want to have my flexible MongoDB data. I want it to be in JSON documents. I want it to work with all of these data tools that I'm already familiar with low or no effort. I mean CSV, I mean parquet, I mean arrow tables, I mean NumPy arrays, I mean pandas, DataFrames, and I want to get it into MongoDB and out of MongoDB very simply. I don't want to lose any data in transmission. I don't want it to take 3 days. And I want the installation and doing of this activity to be so simple that somebody like me could do this task, or, you know, a high schooler. So, PyMongoArrow is the recommended way for us to do this. I don't know if these will actually show up. So these are kind of some of the steps you currently look at. We only focus on 2 of these steps for now, which is writing and extracting your data. This is your installation. I think everybody can manage this one. I promise it works if you just copy it. The next one is, let's talk about defining your schema. So let's say you have a piece of data and you want to just get it into MongoDB, and let's say you have it in a DataFrame or you have it in a CSV, you have it in some kind of tabular format. What you want to do is just put it into MongoDB. We will infer the schema from your source, and so you can define it here on the fly. Importantly, let's say you have a CSV file or a tabular file and you have like 100 columns and you really only want 4 of those. You will only define those 4 fields and their types here. And those will be the ones that are imported. We'll ignore all the ones that you didn't specify. So that way you're not actually porting over every piece of data you have and wasting your network bandwidth. You're just importing over the ones that you actually care about. Okay, so then what do? Right? So you conduct your import, you define the collection that you care about, and then these 3 commands. So you write to DataFrame, you write to your arrow table, you write to your array. Okay, let's say you want to get it out of MongoDB. Let's say this is what you kind of have in MongoDB, right? You have a simple invoice. With some line items, there's an array in the line items that says what they are and how much they cost, and then you have some kind of total, right? If you want to get this out into a pandas data frame, this is what you would be looking at, right? So you define your schema again, and then you run this command. Find pandas all. And then you re-specify your schema that you're talking about. If you want to query it so that you're getting only the invoices that have a total greater than $100, that would be the command. Super simple. For NumPy array, it's very simple also. It's find NumPy all. Same deal. And then an arrow table. From an arrow table, you can actually, arrow is a standard, right? Apache Arrow is a standard if you're not familiar. So actually, we convert to an arrow table, and then from arrow table, you can convert to things like CSV files. So that would be your arrow table. And then I also added parquet as an example of extending the Apache Arrow table. So there's your CSV. So what's so great about Apache Arrow, and this was actually, you know, when I went to the developers and asked them to do this task, they were like kind of not sure, right? They were like, I don't know if that can be done easily. And I was like, well, you can spend months researching how this can be done. That's fine, but I still want the things that I want. And so, to be honest, and they did. They actually looked at several different other implementations of how like high-performing ETL tools are built underneath, and then this is what they came up with, which is using the Apache Arrow standard. Really incredible. We've been very impressed with its speed of data transfer as well. So if you've never checked it out or tried, I really do encourage that. If we want to talk about a little closer inspection of how this works, And at initialization, PyMongoArrow, our new library, will take the schema that you've defined and then iterate over the fields in a MongoDB document, and we build it into this arrow table. And it gives you a new data set in the arrow table that will match whatever your query was. So if there were missing values, these will become nulls. We leave these because we know that Pandas has a lot of great utilities to replace nulls with whatever computed values that you want to use. So we allow the developer to do that elsewhere. If you have extra fields, those are ignored, right? So if you don't define them in your schema, we ignore them. And once we process the schema, only the fields get returned from MongoDB, so that's not the complete dump of your data. And Arrow has a variety of other formats and integrations they've already built, so it's trivial for you to use those as well. Those are simple commands that you can just look up in their documentation. And I think that's essentially all. Here's a link to the docs if you want to check them out. Also, I would like to say that Steve, here, front row, wave, Steve, is the lead developer on this project. So if you have very technical questions, then you can also ask him too.
Great. We do actually have time for questions if you're happy to take them,
Okay.
Rochelle.
I'll give it a shot.
Are there any questions? Okay.
How you doing, Rochelle? Why not just use PyMongo and then DataFrame? Maybe I'm missing something.
No, it's true. It has always been possible to get data into and out of MongoDB using vanilla PyMongo. That's true. But it does often lead to people doing custom code to iterate over their origination document, or I guess tabular data files or whatever. And so what we wanted to do was something that was just super, super simple. So I actually think that the expert developer probably does not spend as much time nearly on this task as the rest of us, right? Sure.
Just in terms of schema, when you're talking about schema, and just to be sure about that, we're not talking about the schema that we do against validation about the collection. It's something that you limit whatever you have within the document. You just want to consider some part of it. So it's a different thing. It's not the schema that we talk about, schema validation.
Correct, yeah, it's something different. It's basically like just which fields you would want from your data that you have, right? It's not the same as schema validation, yeah. It's a totally different thing.
Can you show the slide with the CSV example again real quick?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, and actually, one of the questions that I was hoping people would ask is, what is your roadmap? Please tell us. We have built all of the features that we think the core functionality that is needed for this new tool. And if people have more obscure or whatever requirements, we would love to hear from you. Or we would love for you to test it and let us know what you think.
Thank you very much. At this very moment, I have a problem with Mongo Expert for kept collection. Every time I want to export something from kept collection, which is very fast rotating, it gives me that the point has been lost and can't do it. Can this tool help me to export everything to Panda or somewhere else, kept collection information?
I think so. I don't think it would be a difference. If it's a capped collection, I don't think it would be a difference. I'm not sure. I don't think we've ever tested against that, but we can give it a shot.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Do you have a typo where it shouldn't be arrow table?
Probably, yes. Yes, it's arrow_table, yes. You know what's funny is every Stack Overflow example I tried also did not work, and I was like, even if I have this reviewed by 3 engineers, which I did, including Steve, I was like, I'm sure there's still a mistake in here. Yeah. Sure.
Got time for one last question.
Can you roll to the page that initialized the packages?
The install or this?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. I think they plan to make the PDFs available to everybody. Yeah.
Just one clarification. You need to define a schema when you want to read data out. So it's almost like a projection. You can think of it that way. I'm defining the fields and the types of what I want to pull out. Yeah. But if I already have a NumPy data frame or a table, that's where that line says we infer the schema. So if you're writing from an existing parquet file or a NumPy array, we'll use its data types to infer the schema. So you need to define a schema when you're extracting from the database into your defined typed arrays.